When the cutter bit into the tomb, Felix told me not to write about the dust. His voice came through my helmet, smooth and level in that way he used when he felt cornered. Remember, Tate, we log a clean breach. No anomalies unless they kill us. I leaned into the harness and kept the cutting head steady against the seam. The outer ring arched over me, half buried in basalt, a dark loop of material that looked like stone and handled like something else. The drill's armature shook under my gloves as it chewed along the faint groove that marked a door. You want clean? I watched stress readings flicker in the corner of my visor. Whoever built this should have used bolts instead of whatever this is. Just keep going. Felix's tone sharpened from the rover. Window for first entry is ours if you get that hatch open today. From the rim of the pit, Jake's voice cut in. Log this on Channel Alpha. Corporate override. Mr. Todd instructs Tate to ignore conservative breach delay. I'm right here, Commander, Felix put in. Exactly. I hid a grin. Jake's never raised his tone. When he marked something, it went into the record like a nail through bone. If we lived, that line would be waiting when the suits in orbit argued about who rushed what. The cutter traced another arc. The material had the dull sheen of weathered metal and the brittle flake of glass when I pushed too fast. Every tiny fracture traveled up through the tool into my arms and spine. Pressure difference sat steady. Vacuum outside. Almost the same inside. Whoever buried this had sealed it tight. I nudged the cutter forward. Last quarter. You want to count down, Mac? Mac perched near my knees, anchored to the wall on a safety line, watching my tool readouts on his wrist. He was 10 years younger than the rest of us and wore it like armor. Every mission was his first real one. One long pass and we go immortal, he chirped. First footprints in the Martian tomb. They'll name a lecture hall after you. Great. Another room I'll never visit. This is the moment, Tate. You cut, I witness. That's how history works. Quiet. Jakes clipped the word. Eyes on your instruments. I kept the cutter in its groove. The material brightened under the heat. My suit's cooling system climbed a notch against my back. The seam deepened. A hairline crack ran around the ring, almost complete. Last segment, Leo muttered from my left, boots locked to the opposite wall. There's tension in that ring. When it lets go, it might jump. Then don't stand behind it, I said. That's exactly where you are. He was right. My toes were braced against the inner curve. If the seal gave fast, the panel might move. The angle was the only way to keep the cutter steady. A safer stance would double cutting time, and Felix had made it clear slower meant fewer bonuses, fewer contracts, fewer chances to work jobs like this instead of going back to dead-end rock hauling. I didn't want to spend my life digging for other people's dreams. I wanted to be the one opening the ground to find what everyone else missed. 5 more breaths, I muttered, and let the cutter chew. A line of heat crawled around the ring. The seam met itself with a clack in my headphones as the structure let go. Pressure difference nudged by a whisper. Not enough to trouble the suit, but enough to flag. Seal breached. I eased the cutter back. No blowout. Any internal atmosphere? Sonny called from the rim, hovering just behind Jake's medpack clipped to the ladder. Trace partial. Thinner than home, thicker than outside. Hold position, Jake's again. Let it stabilize. I'd rather get a camera in there. Felix cut across him. We don't have a week to stare at a door. I shifted my boots, ready to push off if anything moved. The panel didn't fall. It folded. Lines I hadn't noticed uncurled along its surface. Sections slid over one another like a slow mechanical iris. The whole ring shuddered, then peeled inward, opening a circular gap just wide enough for a suited body. That's active construction, Leo breathed. Somewhere in there, something still has power. Record everything, Jakes ordered. No one touches interior material until Sonny clears it. The panel kept folding into the wall. It should have jammed with dust ages ago, but but it moved with unsettling smoothness. A thin jet of fine powder shot out through the gap. It burst in a narrow beam along the cutter arm, splashing across my chest plate and Mac's visor. The particles glowed faintly in my helmet light for a heartbeat, then faded to dull brown. Mac laughed. "The tomb sneezes. Bless you, Mars." "Seal external shutters," Jake snapped. "Mac, are your seals green?" "They're always green." In my peripheral display, an icon blinked over my left forearm, a maintenance subroutine I didn't recognize. "I've got a microcycle on my left arm, self-clean on suit lining, flagged auto." Leo muttered, "That routine doesn't run during EVA. It's for station interiors." "Probably a small software fault," Felix cut in. "Log it. Don't panic. We knew some of this gear was patched." Sonny leaned over the pit, trying to peer through the gap without getting closer. "Any motion behind that dust?" "Nothing," I answered. "Interior looks dark. No measurable airflow now. Pressure's flat." The dust settled on my instruments and visor. It didn't fall like normal grit. It clung in a thin layer, hugging edges and seams. I tapped my wrist. Grains shimmered and stayed put. "Tate," Jakes called. "Back out of the entry. Leo, Mac with him. We regroup at the rover." "Copy." I pushed off the inner wall toward the ladder. My left forearm tingled where the maintenance icon still blinked. Pins and needles under skin I couldn't reach. Mac clambered past me, humming some old song. Dust streaked across his visor like war paint. He grinned at me through the glass. "You feel that?" "Feel what?" "Like the suit got tighter." "Log it," Jakes reminded him. "Everything goes in the system." Mac tapped his chest harness. "Harness is pinching is all. Maybe the straps figured out I'm gaining prestige weight." "Enough jokes," Jakes cut in. "Any anomaly is hostile until it isn't." I climbed out of the pit and glanced back into the opening. The tomb mouth lay in deep shadow. Our helmet beams reached only a few meters before fading against surfaces that drank light. The cutter's arm cooled at my shoulder. The maintenance icon on my forearm went dark. By the time we reached the rover, the tingling had dulled to an itch buried somewhere I couldn't scratch. I told myself it was nothing. I had to. There are only so many things you can worry about at once. We rolled toward the habitat as the sun dropped behind the ridge. Martian dusk arrived fast. One moment the ground looked flat and honest. The next every ridge turned jagged. On the rover's rear feed, the tomb shrank to a dark circle on the pale plain. The open mouth watched us go. It felt less like opening a grave and more like taking the lid off a pressure vessel. Something inside had noticed. Mac went down on the crawl from the rover. We were halfway to the habitat airlock, moving along the guideline between landing pad and main module. The dust still clung to our suits in a thin coat, a dull film over plating and joints. "Anyone else feel weird?" Mac piped up, nerves leaking into his attempt at humor. "My harness is chewing into me." "Check your readings," Leo answered. "Maybe your suit's correcting your posture." "I've been told my posture is flawless. Thank you." "Mac." Jakes' tone sliced through the channel. "Status." Mac took another step. His right leg locked mid-stride. The knee joint froze, hand servos stiffening. He toppled sideways. Safety lines snapped tight, jerking him awkwardly. He swung in place, boots kicking empty air. "Something seized!" he gasped. "Right leg's gone. Left is slow." Jakes anchored himself and hauled Mac back toward the line. Leo moved in on the other side. I watched Mac's suit diagnostics. Alerts flared around his chest harness and hip mounts. A local power surge had run through his torso rig, then dropped. We started hauling him toward the airlock. "Don't drag, lift," Sonny warned. "If the joints have seized, forcing them could tear tissue. We leave him out here, he dies," Leo snapped. "I'm not saying leave him. I'm saying don't rip him apart on the way." Mac's breathing came fast. "I can feel the chest plate, Tate, right against my ribs. It's not supposed to be that close." "You're panicking," I told him. "You'll bruise before you break." "I know what a bruise feels like. This hurts differently." The habitat loomed ahead, linked modules half buried for thermal stability, struts and cabling binding them like a crude village. We muscled Mac into the outer airlock. Jakes hit the cycle. Pressure climbed, numbers you heard more than felt. Green light flicked on and we popped our helmets. Inside air hit my face like a slap. Dry, thin, metallic, carrying the taste of filters and machined surfaces. Comfortable the way a familiar cage feels comfortable. Mac tore off his helmet and gulped air in sharp, ragged bursts. Dark hair plastered to his scalp with sweat. Freckles drowned in a new pallor. Chest harness. He clawed at the buckles. Get it off. Hold still. Sonny swung his med scanner over. I need to see. Leo worked the harness buckles. They resisted, as if something beneath had set around them. He had to wrench each clasp free. When the harness fell away, Mac flinched. He hissed and squeezed his eyes shut. The undersuit beneath had warped. What should have been padded fabric clung in irregular ridges. In places, it pressed so tight I could see rib shapes, muscle strands. Along his sternum, suit inner layer and skin blended into one surface. Sonny traced a seam with gloved fingers. He slid a small cutter in, trying to peel the undersuit back. The fabric lifted only when it brought the top layer of skin with it. Max screamed. I grabbed his shoulders, bracing him while Sonny cut away another section. The cutter moved through synthetic and tissue together with a gritty resistance like slicing leather reinforced with wire. Blood oozed, slow and thick. Tiny fragments of suit lining floated in it, pale threads and translucent grains. They clung to torn flesh, stubborn as burrs. Stop! Mac gasped, batting weakly at Sonny's wrists. Stop! Stop! Sonny pulled back, chest heaving. The suit's fused with his skin. Inner lining and upper dermal layer are one structure. Leo stared. That isn't in any fault manual. It's right here in front of us. Jake stood at the hatchway, one hand on the frame, watching. Mechanical? Part mechanical, part biological. Sonny shook his head. I don't know how. I'm seeing fibrous tissue where there shouldn't be any. Felix stepped in behind Jake's, immaculate in his higher-grade suit. He still hadn't opened his helmet, as if that thin shell could buffer him from blame. Is it spreading? I don't know, Sonny snapped. Give me space and I might find out. We transferred Mac onto a gurney and rushed him to the lab module. The lab was small, packed with mismatched equipment, leased, repurposed, old mission scrap. Sonny had carved himself a medical corner, narrow bed, supply cabinet, scanner the size of a suitcase. We laid Mac out. He groaned, eyes slitted, hands twitching whenever fused suit tugged skin. I'm sedating him, Sonny muttered. He won't hold still otherwise and we'll just torture him. You sedate him, we lose his feedback, Felix objected. I want him conscious while we figure this out. Jakes turned his head, slow. He's in agony. We have analgesics. We don't have another Mac. He's our first and only active sample of whatever this is. He's a member of this crew. Jakes' voice stayed low. We don't vivisect him for convenience. You think Command's going to applaud you for wasting the primary data source? I think they'll applaud me for keeping people functional. I need a medic who isn't fighting you, a tech who isn't screaming, and a dig team that isn't tearing itself apart. Tate. I looked up from the console. Log this, Jakes went on. Mac experiences suit skin fusion after dust exposure from tomb interior. Unknown mechanical biological interaction. Status. Crewman is patient, not specimen. My fingers hovered over the entry field. I could feel Felix watching the back of my neck. The words here would frame everything after. If I logged this as an infection, automatic protocols would fire. The moment we reported an unknown pathogen on Mars, the mission would flip from exploration to containment, and corporate would yank control. The site would go dark. Our careers might go with it. I needed this job. I needed the reputation of not being the one who cried planetary biohazard too early. Unknown suit reaction, I typed. Localized to max harness interface. Potential environmental trigger. Subject stable for now. No mention of infection. I watched the entry commit to the log. Hard-coded and time-stamped. Sunny slid a line into Mac's arm. Low dose first, then we scan what we can. The sedative was old, reliable. It flowed through a clear tube, into a connector in the suit layer, and then into his veins. The tube stiffened as it crossed the fused border. The connector sank half a centimeter deeper, drawn in. Mac's eyes rolled. His muscles relaxed, then tightened again. Not human tension, something slower, steadier, matching faint suit power readouts. His chest rose and fell in a controlled mechanical rhythm. Diagnostic lights on his harness flickered once, then rearranged into a new pattern. A status icon popped onto my console. External system linked. Unknown node. Data junction. Bed 01. "Sonny," I murmured. "Look at this." On the habitat schematic, Mac's bed blinked as if it were a new piece of gear. The system recognized him as equipment. We backed away from him in stages. Sonny adjusted monitors and ran tests. Leo watched the power grid, brow furrowed. Jakes drifted between stations, hands clasped behind his back, lines carved deeper around his mouth. Felix stayed in the doorway now, helmet off, face set in professional neutral that fooled nobody. "Power drain's up," Leo reported. "Nothing catastrophic, but there's a steady draw from the suit bay and lab circuits." "From him?" Jakes asked. "Partly. I'm also seeing tiny fluctuations in wall conduits near the suit docks, like maintenance routines running off schedule." "That fits habitat auto behavior," Felix put in. "The system cycles checks constantly." "Not like this." Leo zoomed in on a schematic section. "Look here. The maintenance runs are branching. It's drawing a sketch of itself inside the metal." "Plain English," Jakes prompted. "Power's flowing down paths that don't exist on the blueprint. The grid's growing imaginary wiring." I drifted back to Mac. His face hung slack under sedation. Skin around the harness looked stretched and shiny. The fused segments along his ribs and spine sat in a pattern I didn't recognize. I touched his wrist. Skin there was still skin, warm, damp, ordinary. His pulse beat steady under my fingers. My hand tingled. I jerked back. "Something jumped." Sonny frowned. "What kind of something?" "Like static. A tiny charge." He touched Mac's arm. "Nothing. Try the harness." He brushed the fused edge. "There. I feel an impulse. It moves with me." In the low lab light, the buckles and plates around Mac's chest shifted by a fraction. Not enough to call real motion, but enough to disturb the shadows. "Logging," I muttered. Fused suit segments adjust in sync with internal systems, without external commands. Possible emergent biomechanical system. "Stick to what you can confirm," Sonny warned. "We can speculate later." "What I can confirm," Leo added, "is that the power grid isn't fully ours. There's slow, steady diversion toward the lab, suit bay, and rover clamps." "Can you isolate it?" Jakes asked. "I can try." He began cutting circuits from the main console. Every time he killed a line, the load hopped sideways. In my head, the habitat turned into a body. Walls with hidden veins, conduits carrying current like blood. All of it converging on Mac's bed. We didn't sleep that cycle. By the time corridor lamps shifted to morning, Mac's body had changed again. The fused suit had thickened along his spine. Plates sunk deeper, edges buried in swollen flesh. Thin cables branched from the harness into his arms and neck, following nerve paths. When the habitat door opened, a lens above the frame swiveled to frame the bed. That lens belonged to general surveillance, tied to habitat control. It tracked Mac's breathing instead of us. Jakes' answer was decontamination. He gathered us in the cramped control room. Mac's feed glowed on one screen, his body now tethered to bed and wall by cables we hadn't installed. "We treat the lab and linked systems as contaminated," Jakes said. "Full decon cycle on those lines and surfaces. Heat, abrasion, High-frequency pulses. If this thing's mechanical, we break it. If it's biological, we scorch it. Sonny rubbed the bridge of his nose. We don't know if that'll kill it or harden it. I'm aiming for not spreading, not happy organism. Felix folded his arms. Before we roast the most valuable find in human history, maybe talk to Orbit. You want to tell them we opened a quarantine vault, Jakes countered, then immediately broke what was inside. We don't know it's a quarantine vault. We know we broke a seal and now our man is turning into infrastructure. Felix's lips thinned. If we call this in without a plan, they'll cut us out. Risk boards will take over. People who've never crawled through Martian rock. We'll lose the site and they'll pin every error on us. You care about control, Jakes replied. I care about keeping this from our airlocks and theirs. My arm tingled again, a faint line of discomfort from wrist to elbow. I flexed my hand. The feeling receded, but not completely. If we run decon, Leo warned, we lose redundancy. Those circuits are backup. Burn them and we're down to primaries. Better a fragile system we own than a robust one that belongs to something else. We voted. Jakes, Leo, Sonny and I chose decon. Felix logged his dissent and tried to act like that was enough. The decontamination cycle was brutal. We overclocked heaters along lab walls and suit bay frames. We sent coarse cleaning bots through key conduits, their bristles scraping away anything soft and new. We fired high-energy pulses down the lines with the heaviest foreign load. Equipment rattled. Mac's bed shook. His body jerked at every pulse. Fused segments along his torso charred at the surface. Some cables withdrew, shrinking from heat. He moaned once, even sedated, a low sound that thinned into strained breathing. Sonny hovered, fists tight. We're torturing him. We're torturing whatever nested inside him, Felix answered from the doorway. You can't separate the two yet. Not yet, Sonny agreed quietly. After the cycle, I inspected the lab. Walls bore fresh scars where bots had scraped. In some spots, the overlay flaked, exposing bare metal. Elsewhere, it clung, darkened but intact. Mac's harness looked scorched. The outer layer had cracked. Underneath lay a fresh, pale, fused layer, untouched by heat. It shed the damaged strands, Sonny murmured. Burned off outer fibers to protect the core. You mean Mac did? I asked. Or the thing inside him? At this point, those might be the same answer. The power grid showed damage. Decon had blown several secondary links. We now leaned on main trunks that still carried a faint, constant draw toward the lab. We'd hurt it. We hadn't stopped it. We had weakened ourselves. The first time Mac moved the lab arm, I thought the arm glitched. I was checking his vitals. His skin followed strange lines where fused sections ran, less like flesh, more like grown material built for a job. Smooth and tense over his frame, ridged where cables dove inward. His eyes opened as I adjusted the drip. They locked on my face. For a moment, they looked clear. Tate. I'm here. The motion rippled along the cords in his neck. It's crowded. How? Voices. He flinched. Not words, noise, moving through me. I checked the monitor. Signal traffic streamed through the harness interface. Every door use, every equipment toggle sent a trace through Mac. Try moving your hands, I said. He tried. Fingers twitched, tiny motions under heavy, invisible weight. The lab's manipulator arm, an articulated limb for heavy samples, swung a few centimeters. I froze. Mac grimaced. That isn't me. The arm moved again, matching the small flex along his spine. Hold still, I whispered. Focus on not moving. The lab arm sagged back to rest. We stared at each other. You saw that? He asked. I saw it. Feels like my nerves are growing into the walls. I stepped back, shoulder brushing a conduit. The metal had a faint give, as if something softer lay under it. Log it, Jakes ordered in my ear. He and the others watched through the lab cameras. Mac's neural impulses are routing beyond his body into nearby machinery, I reported. Manipulator arm responds to his muscle activity without direct commands. Out in the corridor, a conduit light brightened, dimmed, matching Mac's breathing. Leo cursed under his breath. He's a node. The word fit. Mac had become a junction where biological and mechanical signals met. The thing in him used his body as a hub. We weren't dealing with a simple sickness. This was a system that repurposed bodies and equipment into one network. Every moment we hesitated, it learned more about us. The tomb didn't wait for us to come back. Next shift, alarms dragged us from half sleep. Leo hammered on my cabin hatch. Tate, up, now. The drill rig's moving. I stumbled into boots and suit torso. What do you mean moving? He pulled me to the control room where Jakes and Felix hovered over the main display. On the feed, the excavator rig at the tomb chugged in slow, steady strokes. Its drill, which we'd parked and powered down, bored into the ground at a crooked angle. It booted on its own, Leo explained, breath tight. Remote logs show no inputs, it just woke up. The drill arm reached deeper into the breach, chewing at rock inside the tomb mouth. Kill power, Jakes ordered. Already did. Leo pointed at a different set of readings. It's drawing from somewhere else. Cables along the ground from rig to rover hummed. New, thin lines had sprouted around them like vines. Those weren't there yesterday, Sonny murmured. I checked the record. They grew overnight, I guessed. From the tomb, up the rig, into our cables. It's using our hardware as bone. Felix had gone pale. That rig costs more than this entire module cluster. So did Mac, Jakes replied. And here we are. The drill rotated in a deliberate rhythm. It wasn't random flailing. It widened the breach, deepening the link between tomb and surface. We cut the rig's connection to the habitat. We couldn't sever its link to the tomb. Dust sprayed in bursts. Tiny particles clung to everything they touched. We have to go back in, Felix murmured, before it finishes whatever it's doing. Go back in to do what? Sonny asked. Find out what it is, Felix insisted. How it works. Whether there's a control interface. If it's using the rig as a tool, there may be a command center. You want to talk to it, Leo muttered. I want to understand it. Knowledge is leverage. We also need to live long enough to use that leverage, Jakes cut in. Right now, this thing's in our man, our walls, our equipment. Our options narrow by the hour. He turned to me. Tate, assessment. We're already compromised, I said. Running won't change that. If we abandon the tomb without understanding what we woke, we go home blind. If we go inside, we might find a way to slow it. Sonny studied me. You're arguing to approach the source of something that fuses flesh and machine, while our first sample turns into a hub 2 doors away. Yes. Because you think you can fix this. Because I can't face going back with nothing but we found a tomb and broke it. I'd already ruined one big survey by pulling back too early. A rival team had moved in, grabbed the richest vein, and painted me risk-averse. Another failure would finish my career. I cut the door, I added. I know the access line, I should go. Jakes watched me with the weary gaze of someone who'd seen too many eager volunteers die. Compromise, he said at last. We go back in with a strict limit. We map what we can in a single push. We look for any sign this place was built to contain, not celebrate. If we find containment systems, we evaluate. If not, we retreat and call for full quarantine. Felix half turned away. Command will read that as failure. They'll read it as evidence we still think. Jakes faced me again. Gear up. You, me, Sonny, Leo, and Felix. Max stays. 1 man on station control. Who? I asked. Jakes glanced at the lab feed, where Mac lay pinned by cables none of us had attached. He does, Jakes said quietly. No one's safer alone with him now. The tomb mouth looked wider when we returned. The folded ring had sunk deeper, the structure spread open in a slow yawn. The rig crouched at the edge, rear supports lifted, most of its mass leaning into the breach. We approached slowly, boots sinking into disturbed regolith. Fine dust coated everything, forming delicate strands between cable and rock. Unnatural bridges. "Don't touch anything you don't have to," Sonny warned. "Don't step on growths if you can help it." We clipped safety lines to the rig and descended. The antechamber waited below, lit only by our helmet beams. The walls swallowed light. Their surfaces were smoother than natural rock, yet not machined in any human style. Subtle ridges and grooves ran like grain in alien wood. "What's the rating on this stuff?" Leo asked, sweeping his beam over the arch. "Harder than basalt," I answered. "Tougher than our hull plates from how the cutter kicked." Sonny gave a dry laugh. "Plain language, please. The walls are tough and they hate being cut." "That's it." We moved deeper. The passage sloped down, bending gently. Our bootfalls sounded close and muted. The first chamber beyond the entrance stopped me cold. Rows of niches lined the curved walls, each framed by thick bands of dark material. Within each niche lay a shape. At first glance, they looked like blocks. Then my eyes adjusted. Bodies. Not human. Limbs too long, torsos thick, waists narrow, necks stunted. Surfaces had the matte look of petrified tissue, each one hung in a crouch, arms part wrapped around a central metal scaffold driven through the torso. Bands crossed their chests, bolting them into the niches. The metal had fused into them along ribs and joints. Some forms had crumbled to flakes. Others remained whole and drained. "Whoever these were," Sonny whispered, "their builders used them as anchors." "Look at the bands," Leo pointed. "Lock grade, like pressure door braces." Marks scored the bands. Not quite writing, not pure ornament. Some cuts ran deeper, as if someone had tried to carve warnings into them. In between those old grooves, newer marks caught my eye. Human hazard symbols, hacked roughly into place. A tilted triangle, a crude biohazard sign from standard kits. Humans had been here. "See that?" I pointed. "Someone from our side came down here once. They added our warnings over whatever this place already wore." Sonny peered into a niche. "These bodies are welded into the structure. This chamber's a lock built out of flesh and metal." A dull vibration climbed through the floor, the steady rumble of the rig above still chewing under instructions we hadn't issued. "We move," Jakes urged. "This place is changing while we watch." We pressed on. The corridor ahead narrowed and twisted. The deeper we went, the less it felt like a building, and the more it felt like walking along a spine. Cross passages branched off, blocked by folded panels like the door we'd opened. Some remained intact. Others hung half-dissolved, edges softened where growth had eaten them from within. Our suit pressure stayed steady. Outside readings showed near vacuum with trace particulate. Enough for dust to drift, not enough for lungs. My left arm flared again. The maintenance icon ghosted across my display. Flicked off, flicked on. "Tate," Leo muttered. "Your suit's pinging something external." "I'm not opening any channels." "In your diagnostics, left arm node keeps throwing handshake requests." "Block them." He sent a command. The icon vanished. The tingling shifted up my biceps like a cold trickle. "Temporary fix," Leo warned. "If this thing's rewriting suit routines, it'll find another path." "How bad?" Sonny asked. "My arm feels wrong," I said. "Like the suit's tighter on the inside than the outside." "Any loss of motion?" "Not yet." "Then we keep going." The passage opened into a wider hall. Here the walls bulged with embedded tech. Not ours. Smooth panels with unfamiliar ports. Thick rods like structural braces finished with obsessive precision. In places, the dark material had warped around clearly human hardware. Old drill modules, hull plates, an ancient suit helmet with a faded patch half visible under fused stone. "Someone tried this route before," I murmured. "They brought gear in. The place kept all of it." "They may have tried to reinforce the original containment," Sonny said. "Add a second cage around whatever was trapped here. Or they tried to harness it, Felix countered. Weapon, construction tool, take your pick. Whatever they wanted, Jakes replied. They didn't take it home. We found his demolition opportunity in the next corridor. The passage pinched at a choke point. Ceiling low enough to scrape helmets, walls thickened with braces that looked more engineered than grown. Clean break spot, Leo observed. Blow the supports. Everything here crumples. Anything climbing would have to dig. Even if it regrows, Jake said, we buy time. He pulled shaped charges from his pack. Compact, directional slabs meant to crack rock without shredding everything nearby. I don't love detonations inside an alien vault, Sonny muttered. I like being eaten less. We set the charges, one per brace. Jakes checked orientation, then nodded back the way we'd come. We fall back around the bend, he said. Leo, remote trigger. Tate, watch the structure. If the collapse looks guided, sing out. We withdrew just far enough that the corridor's curve broke line of sight. Leo tapped his wrist unit. Fire in 3, 2, 1. The world kicked us. A roar rolled through the passage. Dust and fragments surged from the choke point. The floor lurched. For a few moments, everything became vibration. Then the ceiling moved. The walls flexed in a wave. Braces we'd targeted buckled, then thickened as the structure sucked material from elsewhere. Panels extruded from the walls and snapped into place over the blast zone, forming a new ring. Rubble hung in strands of dark matter, then vanished back into the ceiling. The corridor ended up narrower, intact. It healed off our blast, Sonny breathed. It's mapping our attacks as inputs, I muttered. The floor under Jake's bulged. Before he could step away, tendrils punched through seams and wrapped his legs, thin at first like cables, then thickening as they tightened. He grunted as the force yanked him down. Help! We lunged toward him. The tendrils were already buried in his thigh and waist plates. Suit armor rippled as something melted inward. Leo grabbed him under the arms and pulled. The tendrils held. When Leo yanked harder, a section of Jakes' suit tore free. Flesh came with it, stringy and wet. A raw sound tore out of Jakes, too loud in the suit audio. Stop, Sonny snapped. You're tearing him apart. More strands surged, pinning Jakes' torso to the wall. They thickened, merging into bands. His suit cracked, segments folded inward and out, rearranging under new instructions. My legs are gone, Jakes ground out. Waist half gone. Don't pull again, you'll kill me quicker than it will. We can't leave you, Leo protested. You can, Jakes answered, and you will. He turned his helmet toward me. Tate, look at me. Our eyes met through glass. This thing wants us as parts. It already has me. You don't give it free extra mass. That's the math. We could cut you free, Sonny insisted, knife already in hand. At the cost of everything below my ribs. Jakes' breath hitched. I'm not interested in dying slowly while you debate ethics. You retreat and keep looking for ways to slow it. That's your job now. Felix's voice came low. Mute his channel. Listening won't help. Sonny glared at him. The man's dying. In a few minutes, Felix went on. Whatever has him will do something else with his suit and bones. I don't need to hear that happen. Jakes managed a humorless grunt. For once he has a point. You don't want my last minutes in your head. Like we sleep enough for dreams, I muttered. Also fair. His voice thinned. This isn't about heroics, this is weight distribution. I'm heavier. The structure already has me. Don't let it drag more of you in. He drew one more breath. Tate. Lead them out. I hesitated, then killed his channel. There are only so many times you can listen to a man break. We left him there, welded into the wall, lower body swallowed, upper body still human for the moment. As we turned away, I saw tendrils inch up along his spine toward his helmet. We didn't look back. The central chamber felt like an engine core. It opened after a long curve in the corridor, the floor dropping into a shallow bowl around a broad pit. Radial arms of fused technology and fossilized flesh jutted from that pit like spokes. Each spoke was a mass of metal, stone, and bodies. Some bodies matched the niche forms above, long-limbed, wrong-proportioned, locked in contorted postures. Others were human. Old suit helmets lay half-consumed in dark material, visors opaque. Mission patches from dead agencies showed through in faded scraps. Limbs froze mid-reach, fingers stretched toward the pit edge as if clawing for escape. "Our people have been feeding this for a long time," I murmured. Sonny moved along the spokes, gaze flicking. "Each generation finds it and tries to hammer it down. They leave their dead nailed into the structure and still it moves." Felix stepped closer to the pit, boots leaving shallow prints in fine dust. "Look at the center." I joined him. Inside the pit, a dense mass of fused material rose from the floor, squat and heavy, a heart carved from scrap and stone. Tubes and cables ran from its surface into the spokes, then into walls and floor. Some pulses of faint light moved through those tubes, slow currents in buried veins. "This is the vault's core," Felix breathed. "Nexus of the network." "Or just the oldest clump," Leo countered. "Something this adaptive might not have a single center." Sonny crouched at a tube junction. "There are layers, old material below, newer lines on top, patch over patch over patch." Humans had cut into it once. An ancient hull plate lay welded across one area, now covered by a membrane of new growth. Beneath it, a faint symbol, scratched in a language I didn't recognize, ghosted through. "Whoever last touched this knew it was dangerous enough to bury deeper," I muttered. We cut right through the extra armor. Pain prickled along my left arm. I flexed my fingers. My hand obeyed, but with a lag, like a tool at the end of a long cable. "Tate," Sonny said quietly, watching his display. "Your suit reading just spiked." "I can feel the upgrade," I answered. "That dust is finished loading its software." Felix stared down into the pit. "This place is a quarantine vault. Someone tried to lock this system away, many someones. None of them managed a permanent fix." "We're not finishing the job with what we've got," Leo said. "We don't have the tools." "We have our suits," Felix argued. "We've got access to its lines. It's using old interfaces to control new growth. If one of us links in on purpose, we might steer it, learn its logic, turn it." "Absolutely not," Sonny snapped. Felix faced him. "Got anything better?" "Yes. We get out, cut our ties, warn orbit, and hope they burn this site." "And abandon any chance to turn this into something useful?" Felix demanded. "You think Command will thank you for destroying adaptive infrastructure that could rebuild cities?" "That infrastructure is busy rebuilding people into fixtures." Sonny shot back, gesturing at the fused bodies. Felix's mouth twisted. "You lack vision. And you treat living flesh like spare parts." My arm throbbed. An icon blinked on my display. External link request, source unknown, target left arm. "It's pinging me," I muttered. "Block it," Leo insisted. "I can't. It's inside my routines now." "Then we quarantine you," Sonny said. "We can't risk another Mac." "We're out of spare crew," Felix argued. "We need every mind, especially one already halfway in. He might be our bridge, whether he likes it or not." I met Sonny's eyes. "I'm compromised. That makes me the safest one to push further. I'm already on the wrong side of this." "That's one way to phrase expendable," he replied. "We cannot argue this in circles here," I cut in. "We decide, attempt contact or not." "We're already in contact," Felix countered. "Through Mac, through you, through the rig and walls. We can either crash into that blind or guide it." He stepped to the pit edge and brushed a gloved hand along one of the thick tubes. Sonny lunged. He was a heartbeat late. Felix's suit carried an extra neural layer, direct link between his nervous system and suit control. He plugged that line into the tube using a standard data connector. The vault accepted. Felix stiffened, back-arched, fingers splayed and locked. His helmet jerked as if gripped by invisible hands. A short, torn sound escaped him. "Unplug him!" Sonny barked. I grabbed Felix's shoulder. Leo took his arm. We yanked the connector. Felix collapsed, knees folding. We eased him to the pit edge. His body didn't go slack. It reconfigured. Suit plating rippled along his torso. Segments slid, forming new ridges. Cables thickened, burrowing deeper toward bone. His eyes snapped open. Anger burned there, for a moment his alone. "Don't disconnect," he rasped. "I had it. I was inside." "Inside what?" I demanded. "Everything. Every line." He sucked air through clenched teeth. "I felt the habitat, the rig, Mac, Jake's. It's one system. Complete. It wants to optimize." "Optimize what?" "Arrangement. It rearranges bodies, machines, rock, airlocks, dust, everything." "Can you steer it?" Leo asked. Felix gave a ragged laugh. It mapped my nervous system in an instant. Then it started editing. Another second and I'd be part of the core. His torso jerked. A new stripe of plating snapped into place along his side. Suit underlayer gripped tighter. "You're still part of it," Sonny murmured. Felix's lips twitched. "So are you. So is Tate. It has your suit logs, biometrics, everything you've run through the habitat since landing." He tried to stand. His legs refused. Tubes along the pit wall lunged, thin tendrils wrapping his boots. In seconds they thickened and anchored him. "Cut them," Felix snapped. We hacked at the cords. Each cut made him convulse. Pain and something else. "It's rooting through me," he gasped, "using my suit as a branch node. Every line you sever forces a reroute. It hates that." He sagged, breath ragged. "We can't free him without killing him," Sonny concluded. "We can't leave him fully awake either," Leo said. "He'll help it if he thinks that buys control." Felix glared. "I'm not your enemy." "You're its asset," I answered quietly. "That's close enough." We sedated him. Drugs might not touch whatever hybrid pathways had formed, but they dulled what was left of his human nerves. The tubes around his legs thickened as he slipped under, pulling his suit deeper into the pit wall. We left him there, half man, half anchor. The system would use him to extend itself. He'd offered himself, and the vault had accepted. Leo died in the next chamber. We had to cross a narrow bridge over a shaft whose bottom our lights never touched. The bridge was a strip of dark material spanning the chasm, cables humming beneath. Halfway across, Leo halted. "You hear that?" he asked. "I hear everything," I muttered. "No, the rhythm. It's matching us, counting." I listened. Cables under the bridge vibrated in a pattern that followed our stride. Each footfall drew a matching response. "We're in its joints," Sonny murmured. "Then move," I said. "Don't give it time." We stepped off the far end into a chamber where the walls bowed inward, forming a warped hexagon. The floor was crowded. Old equipment lay piled along one wall. A broken rover chassis, stripped bunks, a split air tank, all of it half fused to dark material. Strands threaded through railings and handles. Plates flowed around rivets. The vault had eaten it and grown around it. Leo's temper finally snapped. "This thing turns everything into itself," he snarled. "Every tool we bring, every body we lose, all of it becomes feedstock." Without waiting for an answer, he drew a crowbar and waded into the pile. He drove the bar into joints where human metal met vault material. Each blow shook loose fragments, old and brittle, or new and shiny. He ripped at cables until they snapped. The structure answered. Tendrils shot from the walls. These weren't probing threads like the ones that first snared Jake's. They came thick, sure of themselves. He hit the pile again. One tendril wrapped his forearm. The shock snapped through his shoulder. Another coiled around his leg. He yanked. The cords tightened, compressing his suit. Plating creaked. Underlayer bit into skin. "I'm stuck," he grunted. "Get me loose." Sonny grabbed his torso. I took his arm. Boots braced. The tendrils hauled him toward a bulge in the wall, a spot already shaped to receive something. "You're not taking me," Leo snarled, swinging the crowbar at the cords on his leg. He severed one, then another. Panels snapped open. More tendrils whipped out, faster now. They wrapped his waist and chest, pinning his arms. The crowbar slipped from his hand. "No," he rasped. "No, no." The wall took him. The bulge opened like a mold. His back sank into it. The dark material shaped itself around his torso. Straps extruded and crossed his chest and thighs. His suit split along seams, not exploding but unfolding. Plates peeled away, petals around a core. The inner layer already bonded to his skin shone through. Sonny slashed at a strap. The wall clenched around his blade like a muscle. The strap thickened and swallowed the knife. Leo met my eyes. "Don't let it take my head." The wall rose around his neck, forming a soft collar that hardened. His helmet display flickered wild, then dark. His hands still thrashed, but slower. "I can't reach him," Sonny gasped. "Every cut teaches it how to counter. It's learning my hand." I stepped in and grabbed Leo's hand. His fingers closed around mine. For a heartbeat, he was still Leo, the man who cursed at tired scrubbers and coaxed life from dead panels. His grip slipped. His palm flattened against the wall as inner suit lining fused deeper into dark matter. His arm became a strut in a structure that didn't care about his name. We backed away. What was this built for? Sonny's eyes looked hollow behind his visor. It was probably designed as a repair system, a tool that patches damaged infrastructure with whatever's available. Bodies, machines, rock. It doesn't distinguish between them. It serves its task. And right now, we're the most convenient material. It isn't cruel. It isn't kind. It's indifferent. It uses what it has. We stood there, breath loud in helmets, surrounded by the remains of earlier answers. Every broken frame had been someone's plan. Every strap pinning Leo down had once held something else in place. "How do you stop a system like that?" I asked. "You either outrun it," Sonny said, "or die in a way that denies it your mass." He looked at me. "You and I carry fragments now. We've seen it from the inside. That makes us dangerous carriers. When we go back up, there's one real way to protect everyone else. Which is? We don't leave Mars alive." The climb back felt longer than the descent. The structure shifted around us. Corridors we'd used widened or narrowed by a handspan. New ridges lined walls. The floor in some places had a faint spring, as if something softer had grown beneath the hard layer. My left arm wasn't just tingling anymore. It felt like borrowed equipment. Movements lagged by a fraction of a heartbeat. When I made a fist, I sensed lines of force traveling not only up my nerves, but outward into the nearby walls. Sonny checked my readings as we walked. The infection's integrated suit lining into your flesh along the forearm. It's following power lines along your nerves. I figured. How far up? Elbow for sure. Maybe shoulder if I stop paying attention. He grimaced. My back's wrong too. Scans show filaments along my spine, anchored where my harness sits. You and I are half-installed parts. Exactly. We reached the lower antechamber. From there, the passage sloped toward the entrance. Surface light smeared faintly down the tunnel. Something else hung from above. New growth draped from the ceiling. Semi-transparent sheets hung like curtains, shifting in the tiny air movements from our suits. They hadn't been there on the way down. It's reaching upward, Sonny observed, stretching toward open sky. We pushed through the veils. They clung to our suits, then snapped back in strands that reeled into the walls. At the mouth, the drill rig stood half-eaten. One side of the chassis remained intact. The rest had been drawn into the ring wall, plating and arms fused into a twisted arc. Outside, the habitat modules dotted the plane, connected by their cables and supports. Some of those cables had thickened and straightened, under a tension that hadn't existed before. We're behind schedule, I murmured. We were always going to be behind with something like this, Sonny replied. Either you stop it before it wakes, or you don't stop it at all. We can still choose what we export. He turned his helmet toward mine. That's the real decision. We trudged toward the habitat. Dust had piled around module bases, more than wind alone could explain. It formed soft ramps where sharp angles used to be. Some panels bent outward, strained by pressure or growth. The jettisoned lab module lay off to one side, half buried in disturbed regolith. We'd blown its bolts earlier to isolate Mac. Now the ground around it had risen, cupping it. "It reached him," Sonny murmured. "We knew it would." I was still hoping. Hope's cheap. The vault eats anything free. We walked up the main ramp and cycled through the airlock. Inside, the corridors looked familiar for half a second. Then the differences surfaced. Corners had rounded, filled by smooth layers of dark material. Ceiling struts carried new ridges. Floor panels had warped where cables below had thickened. The habitat was becoming a limb. Cutting off Mac hadn't frozen the infection. It had simply found another route, through regolith and old stress fractures, then up through our own walls. "We can't stay," Sonny whispered. "We don't have to," I answered. "We just need the shuttle." The emergency ascent shuttle sat on its own pad beyond the main cluster. Separate power, its own small life support. It was the last resort, a way off Mars if the habitat failed. If it was compromised, we were done. In the control room, I stared at its status. "Shuttle power?" I asked. Leo's station felt wrong without him. Sonny took the readout. Propellant pressure steady, propulsion green, environmental showing minor anomaly flags. Source? Maintenance routines look off. We share some software tools between modules. If they've been rewritten, the infection might have reached the shuttle through firmware or hardware. So it may be dirty. At a low level. The shuttle was both lifeline and threat. A sealed system we could escape in, and a perfect vehicle for this thing. "This is where my plan fits," Sonny said quietly. "The plan where we launch empty and die here to protect orbit." "Yes." He faced me fully. "If we fire the shuttle unmanned on a trajectory away from Mars, we keep that particular path closed. Then we go back down there, do what we can to destroy ourselves and anything active around us. With luck, Command notices the anomalies, quarantines the site, and drops everything heavy they've got on these coordinates." "You're asking me to throw away our one exit?" "I'm asking you to weigh 2 lives against everyone this could reach if it finds a space station or transport." He wasn't wrong in theory. In practice, the idea of dying in that vault, slowly welded into the walls while committees argued over us, made my altered skin crawl. "I can't," I whispered. "You can. You don't want to." "Correct. At least you're honest." I paced a tight circle. The floor felt softer underfoot, pressure from growth below. "We're not out of options yet," I said. "If we launch with it, we can isolate ourselves in orbit, declare quarantine from up there." "They won't trust us," Sonny replied. "Not without proof. Proof means samples. Samples mean letting this thing aboard. Once it's aboard, it has more systems. Then no samples, just us. 2 infected people in a sealed capsule," he said. "You think that's safer than leaving it buried as deeply as we can manage? It's already beyond where we found it. It has the rig, the habitat, Mac, Jakes, Leo, Felix. This site's gone. If we die here, it still has infrastructure on the surface. It'll keep building around what's left of us. If we leave, we take some fraction of it and at least give Command a moving target." He studied me. "You're bending logic for survival." "Of course I am. That's what survival does." His mouth twitched. "I don't want to die either." That startled me more than any growth in the walls. "You sounded very convinced down there." "I'm tired, Tate. I came to Mars for a clean mission. Study some microbes, patch some cuts, go home. I didn't plan to turn myself into mortar for an alien prison, but I also can't pretend launching's safe." "So?" "Compromise." He glanced at the shuttle schematic. "We go. We run a full manual systems check with our suits powered down. No wireless, no easy links. We treat this thing like a current that needs conductors and cut every path we can. That'll cripple our response if something goes wrong. It also narrows the ways it uses us, and we won't tell orbit everything, not at once. You want to lie. I want to control the story long enough to design real containment instead of handing it to people who'll panic and swing wildly. That sounds like Felix. Felix chased advantage without brakes. We'll go slower. The station creaked, or shifted. Either way, something settled. 2 infected people, I repeated. 1 shuttle, partial truth to orbit. And time bought for Mars before the vault finishes whatever it's building, Sonny said. There's no clean option, only different scars. I exhaled. Fine, we go. The path to the shuttle passed the viewport facing the jettisoned lab. I stopped. Through the thick glass, the module sat half swallowed by the ground. Regolith had risen in a smooth slope, burying the lower half. Dark material wrapped the seams, laying a new skin over the hull. Cables that once linked lab to main habitat now ran between them like tendons, thicker than before. Their rhythm matched a pattern I felt along my altered nerves. We can't help him, Sonny murmured. I know. He's not Mac anymore in any way we'd recognize. He still looked at me. He still used your name. That doesn't mean the person you knew is running the show. I turned away. The shuttle airlock was smaller than the habitats. Its hull gleamed under dust. The access ramp groaned, but held. Inside, the air had a sharper metallic bite. The shuttle was newer than the modules, but the layout was familiar. Narrow corridor, 2 bunks, a compact cockpit with twin seats. Power down suits, Sonny said. Hard kill on wireless, manual only. We complied. My visor dimmed as I shut non-essential routines. The maintenance icon on my arm flickered once more, then vanished as I cut power. For a moment, the tingling faded. My arm hung dead. Then my own nerves filled the gap raw. The control console glowed in blunt colors. Manual switches, physical gauges, screens that could fall back to text. It felt almost honest. We ran through pre-launch checks aloud like a ritual. Fuel pressure. Within range. External restraints. Released. Guidance. Nominal. Environmental. Anomalies in air cycling, Sonny reported. We can bypass the questionable parts and run emergency backup. It'll be miserable, but fewer paths for the infection. I flipped toggles. Main life support hum faded. A rougher, louder system kicked in, designed for emergencies. We'll feel like we're breathing through a sock, I muttered. Better than becoming part of the duct, Sonny replied. We strapped in. Last chance, he said. We can still step out, lock the hatch and vent this thing empty. And go back down to be welded into that vault, I answered. Knowing something will use us as reinforcement. I'm not that noble. I won't judge you for choosing life. You'll judge me when this thing shows up in a station corridor, I said. Probably. A faint smile touched his mouth. Still more interesting than being wall filler. I barked a short laugh. You're a terrible moral compass. Thanks. I keyed launch. Engines spun up. The shuttle shook. Clamps thudded open. Gravity shifted by a hair. Here we go, I murmured. We rose. Acceleration pressed me into the seat. The habitat shrank below, modules, cables, and dark growths knotting into a single scar on the plane. The tomb ring stood out as a darker circle. I watched it until the ground blurred into red and brown, until the horizon curved. I'm waiting for something to grab us, Sonny muttered, some metal spine reaching up from the surface. It still needs structure, I answered. Dust and rock only carry so far. The ship rattled through thinning air. Alarms chirped corrections, nothing vicious. Minor thrust tweaks, tiny pressure variances. Atmosphere fell away, pressure on my chest eased. Outside, black and stars. Mars curved below, rusty with pale caps. We made it, I breathed. For a few seconds I believed it. Then my arm flared. Tingling surfaced like a limb waking. It sharpened into lines. I felt the shuttle, Not seats and straps, currents, a shift in the left engine's thrust, a minor valve adjust near air tanks, the cycling of the backup fans. Muscles in my arm tightened on their own. The stick under my fingers twitched, as if we were parts of the same tendon. "Sonny," I murmured. "It came aboard." He turned. "Explain." "The infection. Whatever grew into me. I can feel systems that don't have sensors." His face went a shade paler. "Details. When the engine gimbals adjust, my shoulder twitches. When life support cycles, something runs down my spine. It's mapping the shuttle through me." He stared at my sleeve. "Your suit's fully offline. This is direct nervous tissue. Looks that way." My hand clenched without permission. Attitude thrusters fired a short burst, nudging our nose. Sonny grabbed his console. "You did that?" "Sort of." "Clarify, sort of." I didn't decide to. My arm moved. Whatever's in me moved with it. "Can you resist?" "I'm trying." I forced my fingers open. The thrusters quieted. "New lesson," Sonny muttered. "We're infected beyond the fabric. It laid itself into nerves directly. Whatever it used on the original hosts works fine in ours." "So we're nodes even naked?" "Yes." A rough laugh escaped me. Dying down there instead suddenly feels simpler. That door's closed now. I checked trajectory. The shuttle was on course to rendezvous with the station. Docking routines would carry us in unless we changed them. "We have another choice," I said. "Which?" "We can angle away, burn the fuel, point ourselves somewhere empty." He frowned. "Self-exile. It would limit spread. It would also leave Mars alone with that vault. No data, no guidance, just a shattered habitat and a corrupted tomb. Maybe that's safer than delivering a seed to orbit." He leaned back, eyes half closed. "We carry more than a seed. We carry memory, behavior patterns. If we die out there, that dies with us. So we dock. We ask for quarantine. We insist any further contact with Mars routes through us." "And the infection moves into station hardware," I said. "Not if we stay farther ahead than everyone else," Sonny replied. "That's optimistic, considering how fast it redraws people." He met my eyes. "Fear has driven enough of our choices. Let this one be for possibility too." There was selfishness in my choice to live. There was also a belief that someone who could feel this thing from the inside might build defenses no clean observer could. I didn't pretend the balance was noble. "We dock," I said, "but we don't confess the nervous system part." "Of course." "We tell them the vault fuses equipment and bodies. We tell them to quarantine the site. We don't mention we're part of the system. Not until we know how to use that. Then we're in this together." "It's not betrayal," Sonny said. "It's risk management." "Pretty word." "Words are tools," he replied. "We use what's left." Docking felt like re-entering civilization. The station floated ahead, lights burning in orderly rows around its hub. Docking arms extended like fingers reaching to guide us. Radio chatter crackled, traffic control confirming identity, assigning approach, clearing our port. I answered by reflex, voice calm. "Expedition shuttle reporting partial mission failure, multiple casualties, unknown hazard at surface site, mechanical and biological interaction. Request immediate quarantine and debrief." The controller's voice came crisp through delay. "Acknowledged, shuttle. Isolation bay is ready. Dock at port Beta. Follow full containment protocol." Containment meant a bare room and people in heavier suits on the far side of glass. We deserved that much. I slid the shuttle into its cradle. My fingers moved over controls. My altered nerves moved with them. Somewhere in the hull, structural elements adjusted a hair ahead of my decisions. The infection had already started learning the station's layout through us. Docking clamps bit with a dull thud. The gangway extended. Pressure equalized. For a moment in the quiet, I felt every bolt tying us to the station, each one a potential path. "Here we go," I murmured. We shut down systems as far as safety allowed. We kept suit electronics dark. We followed remote instructions through opening doors, never meeting a face. The isolation bay was a simple cylinder. 2 bunks, a small sanitary unit, a table with restraints. Cameras behind armored glass. An inner and an outer door. Voices came through speakers only. "Strip to underlayers," someone ordered. "Place suits in indicated lockers. No equipment contact without instruction." We obeyed. Peeling my suit hurt. The inner fabric had begun to bond along my arm and shoulder. Sonny took a foam cutter to the worst spots, separating flesh and composite with careful, shallow passes. The cutter snagged more than once. "You're growing composite tissue," he observed. "Your skin's carrying faint circuit patterns." "What's it look like?" "Like someone etched a schematic under your dermis." "Beautiful." We stowed the suits, lockers sealed. Sonny used a mirror to check his back. Fine ridges ran along his spine where the harness had pressed. The skin there had a different sheen. We pulled on the loose bay garments, plain fabric, no embedded electronics. "Feels almost primitive," I said, flexing my altered arm inside the sleeve. "Primitive might be the only insulation we've got left," Sonny replied. We waited. People watched through the glass. I couldn't see faces, just silhouettes behind glare, but I felt their systems. Lines ran through the walls. Power and data. My changed nerves recognized the rhythm, the way you recognize a language you've started to learn. The thing inside us listened. That drone arms moved 3 times, I noted. A manipulator mounted near the ceiling had inched closer to our bunks with each light cycle. "They're adjusting equipment," Sonny suggested. "Maybe." I flexed my fingers. "Or something is." "You feel it?" "Yes." He put his hand against the table. "Describe it." "Like the metal isn't entirely inert," I said. "There's tension in it that matches something in my bones." He nodded slowly. "I feel that too, slightly." "The infection's already in the station now," I added. "Came up with us, through our nerves." "Not just parasite," Sonny murmured, looking along the ceiling. "We brought a new way for machines to read flesh." I watched the drone arm shift another fraction. It wasn't dramatic, no lunging tentacle, just a careful realignment of joints to keep us centered. "We still have leverage," he went on. "We're the only ones who know what it feels like from inside. The only ones who've watched it behave in stone and steel and blood. We can advise. We can steer people away from panic. We can decide where to let it grow and where to starve it." "You want to become its curators," I said. "I want to keep fear from making everything worse. It'll spread. The question is how fast, how far, and in what shapes. If we can guide that, we might end up alongside it instead of under it." "That still sounds like an alliance." "That sounds like damage control." We fell quiet. Med crews conferred behind the glass. Their suits were thicker than ours, lined and reflective, as if they expected radiation instead of nerves and dust. They'd scan us and sample us and write reports. We'd answer, not fully. I set my palm on the table, skin stretched over hidden filaments. The metal shivered almost imperceptibly under my touch. "You're not going to tell them," Sonny said quietly, watching my hand. "If I tell them, they'll treat us as pure vectors. They'll cut us out of every decision and try to cut us out of their systems. We'll lose any say in how this goes." "You're choosing influence." "I'm choosing not to be turned into another bracket on a wall while people who don't understand this make choices for us." He considered that, then nodded once. "We keep the full story between us then, for now." "For now." We sat on the bunks, 2 men stitched into the early threads of a vast new network. Outside, station systems shifted in ways we could feel under our skin. Far below, on the plain, the vault kept working. It would digest Mac and Jakes and Leo and Felix into new ribs and braces. It would creep along the entombed rig and into the empty habitat, turning both into another layer of its own cage and fuel. Up here, behind glass, we had a sliver of time. Time to plan, time to learn, time to decide how much of ourselves we'd trade for a chance to steer a tool that had never been designed to care who it used. Overhead, the drone arm aligned its joints with the lines of my extended fingers, responding to the impulse I fed into the bunk's metal frame. I didn't move my hand. I let the pattern settle. Survival rarely comes clean. It's a process of becoming whatever the world leaves available. In this version of the world, it seemed, Sunny and I would be something in between, part people, part interface. Two more pieces in a system that had started to wake, and for the moment at least we were alive enough to choose which way we turned.